I was visiting a bar, and in he walked.
You saw his face?
His face? No. I mean, every step he took towards the light, just when you thought his face was about to be revealed, it wasn't. It was as if the lights dimmed, just for him.
They called him a loner.
I know who you are.
Really?
You kill drug dealers.
I killed the woman I loved. You ruined my life.
They called him a miss.
You've heard stories of that man that carries the guitar case full of weapons. Find him and kill him.
I hope you don't think you can take someone like Bucho all by yourself.
Really?
They made the mistake of calling his bluff.
Is there something in the guitar case? My guitar?
Now, it's time to face the music.
Let's play.
Cool.
Desperado, the new film from Robert Rodriguez.
Welcome to the latest episode of the B-Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This will be discussing the 1995 action classic, Desperado, starring Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek, Quentin Tarantino is in there a little bit, Danny Trejo, the list goes on and on, Steve Buscemi. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B-Movie Club we discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. You can go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B-Movie Club, give us the big thumbs up. You can also go to our page on YouTube, KD9575, and hit the subscribe button, it's totally free. You can also follow me on Twitter, at the B-Movie Club. Don't forget to follow me, subscribe, like me, do all those things. You get the latest updates. You'll know whenever I post a new video, anytime I find an interesting article or pass along a quote or anything like that. It's all right there at your fingertips. So there you go. Don't forget to spread the word. Tell all your friends and neighbors, won't you? Desperado. In this movie, the mariachi from the movie El Mariachi is back, out for revenge. He goes from bar to bar, basically trying to hunt down this evil gangster named Bucho. And the guys are not willing to give up the information. So from bar to bar, he's basically having to kill everybody. It's very sad. He's got some helpers along the way. Steve Buscemi plays this guy named Buscemi, who is supposedly helping him find El Bucho. The reason he's after Bucho is because in the first movie, his girlfriend, his love interest, was murdered by this other gangster named Moko. I don't want to tell you everything about El Mariachi, but somehow Bucho is the next guy in line after he kills Moko. Moko's boss is Bucho. It's all very hard to understand. He meets Carolina, a kindly bookstore owner who takes him in, bandages up his wounds so he's able to go out into the world. He starts developing feelings for Carolina. Conversely, we see the gangster Bucho has got like this compound that he's living in. He's a drug dealer, essentially. He's getting irritated that this man in black is taking out all of his guys. So he keeps sending his gangsters out to take care of him. They have trouble finding him because he's just one man after all. Meanwhile, the Colombians, who are like the drug connection with the Mexican drug lords, have sent their own evil gangster guy who appears. He throws knives at people. I don't want to spoil everything. I don't want to give it all away. There's a lot of layers and levels to this. Basically, El Mariachi was just that. He was a mariachi. Okay? In the first movie, it was kind of a movie that was kind of case of mistaken identity. He was coming into town with his guitar case looking for work. Unfortunately, the gangsters were looking for another man in black who had a guitar case full of guns, who was out to kill their boss. So they see El Mariachi, think it's the bad guy they're looking for, and attack him. He's forced to kind of defend himself. So there you have it. By the end of the movie, he's met a nice lady. There's romance, but she gets killed by the gangsters. Now, at the end of El Mariachi, spoiler alert, he kills all the bad guys. So this is where it gets confusing. Didn't he kill all the bad guys? Because now in Desperado, the sequel, he's now like, well, I killed all those bad guys, but now I'm still trying to get revenge from people who weren't even in the first movie. It's all very strange and complicated. They aren't really explaining what it all comes down to. And again, the first movie, he was just kind of like a regular guy who's kind of forced into unusual circumstances. In this movie, he's basically the Terminator. It's like he's dancing around, he's shooting, goes into a bar, there's 20 guys in there, he kills them all single-handedly. What happened? Okay, well, how does a guy go from being a guy playing the guitar to now he's Rambo, essentially? Now, not only was his girlfriend killed in the first movie, but they shot him in the hand. So now he can't play the guitar anymore. It's very upsetting. So that's also why he goes on the rampage. Now, the first El Mariachi, directed by Robert Rodriguez, was very, very low-budget movie. Basically, he hired his friends, kind of amateur actors, to be in the movie. But it was very successful. And like the local studios spent like so much more money to get it up to snuff, to actually put out and publicize it and let people know about it. So that when the second movie came around, it was much bigger movie in terms of money that they put into it. You know, one of the cameras that they used on Desperado was worth more than the entire production of El Mariachi. Now, they wanted to upgrade a lot of areas. They brought in Antonio Banderas, who was kind of an up-and-coming young actor. He'd been in a few things at this point. He was like in Interview with the Vampire. He was in the Mambo Kings, Philadelphia at this point. Brought him in to kind of increase the star appeal. So now he's El Mariachi. Again, he wasn't in the first one. They replaced that actor with this guy. They also introduced a young Salma Hayek, who at this point had been doing like soap operas and things like that. Now they kind of put her out there, and now she becomes a big star based upon this movie as well. So there you go. All sorts of good things going on here. There's a scene where they have a flashback to the first movie. They had to reshoot that scene with Antonio Banderas to kind of make it all make sense. Later in the movie, while he's battling all the bad guys, he calls in his buddies Campa and Kino, who are also mariachis, but for some reason they have like machine guns and rocket launchers in their guitar cases. It's all very complicated. If you're watching closely, the guy who plays Campa, one of the El Mariachi's buddies, actually played El Mariachi in the first movie. So there you go. I know a buddy of mine told me back in the day when we saw this, he thought this guy kind of reminded him of Howie Mandel. Howie Mandel's Latin cousin. I don't know. It's all very complicated. So there you have it. Originally, they had hired Raul Julia to play the role of Bucho, but he died before the movie went into production, so they actually had to hire a different actor. I was laughing watching this movie because it takes place like in a Mexican border town. A lot of the actors are Mexican. However, Antonio Banderas, not Mexican, he's from Spain. And the guy who plays Bucho, an actor named Joaquim de Almeida, is from Portugal. So neither of two of the three main actors are not Mexican in descent at all, which I find kind of interesting. This movie was the second movie of a trilogy. Again, started with El Mariachi, went to Desperado. A few years later, they came out with Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which was meant to kind of wrap it all up. Evidently, recurring themes in these movies are the El Mariachi, whose name is never really given. Basically, he is battling kind of impossible odds while the people he loves around him bite the dust. So it's very upsetting. What are you going to do? The special effects that were used in this movie, a lot of the guns actually fired like not bullets but like blood. So when there was a shootout, it would actually be like blood splattering on the person to make it look more realistic. Unfortunately, it looked too realistic. At one point, they were going to make the movie an NC-17, so he had to cut a lot of these scenes out, including there was supposed to be this big climactic battle at the end of the movie where El Mariachi goes into the bad guy's place and shoots it up. They had to cut that whole scene out, so it just kind of, the movie more or less ends with the beginning of the shootout. Like he's shooting and fade, and then he wakes up later, that kind of thing. They just cut that out. You know the good guy wins, spoiler alert. So Quentin Tarantino, who was a buddy of Robert Rodriguez, kind of, encouraging him and has collaborated with him in later things like From Dusk Till Dawn, The Grindhouse, things like that. This was back when Tarantino was kind of the big guy. He's still very popular. But where he still insisted, I guess he still insists on being in a lot of these movies. So Quentin Tarantino, there was this role of the pickup guy, who was the guy sent to pick up money or drugs or something like that. He goes in there and they kind of rewrote it to accommodate Quentin's particular talents. So let me know what you think about that one. Funny, Cheech Marin is in this. And like I said, Steve Buscemi is in this. They couldn't afford to have them work a lot. They could only afford Cheech for about 6 days and Steve Buscemi for about 7 days. So they filmed like all their scenes in one quick shot to kind of get them in and get them out of there. So that's kind of interesting. There's a scene, it's actually a weapon where they show this kind of crotch gun that he's got in his case. There were actually a couple scenes where he actually uses that crotch gun, but they were both cut out. Like I said, Danny Trejo, who plays the Colombian knife-throwing bad guy, there was like a whole big bloody scene with him in it that they kind of cut that down for ratings reasons. Now, they did bring back the crotch gun in From Dusk Till Dawn. So there you go. If you're watching close, you don't have to watch that close. If you watch the movie at all, you'll see the crazy crotch gun. So that is lovely. This movie is still streaming instantly on Netflix, so if you haven't seen it, rush out and see it. It currently has a 62% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I enjoy it. I mean, it's a very interesting action, shoot-'em-up, gangster kind of thing. Like I said, it really kind of introduced the world to Salma Hayek. It kind of pushed up Antonio Banderas and becoming a big star. So I enjoy it. It is still streaming instantly on Netflix. I actually hadn't seen this movie in probably 10 years when I watched it more recently. I enjoy it. It's fun. What do you want? So there you have it. Next week, I'm moving away from the action shoot-'em-up to a science fiction comedy thing. We're going to do the 1999 sci-fi comedy classic, Galaxy Quest, starring Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver. It's an all-star cast. Sam Rockwell's in this one. So it is still streaming instantly on Netflix, so rush out, see it, let me know what you think. Send me any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, or questions, and I may talk about it on the show. Also, don't forget to send me any movie suggestions. I keep just adding them to my queue. As soon as I get to them, I will. Please, keep them coming. Now's the time where I talk about a totally out-of-context quote. And here it is. Bless me, Father, for I have just killed quite a few men. So that's my Antonio Banderas impression as well. So there you have it. Good times had by all. Next week, Galaxy Quest, streaming instantly on Netflix. Thank you for joining us, and be well.